Okay, let's hope this is working. It's always the hope, isn't it? Not running yet. Yes, that's right. Cool. We good? We there? How are you? How are all of you doing? It says the chat rate is 4. I don't even know what that means. I got all these analytics here, and sometimes, like, one of it says concurrent viewers 4. The other one says concurrent viewers 0. So that's always exciting. How are you? Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm on the streaming app. It looks like there's sound, but you never know. So just want to double check on that. Yeah. So just waiting. Got a very lovely rose tea here. I can recommend it for sure. Maybe I should start putting that in the detail section. The different teas that I'm doing. So I tend to be drinking some tea, don't I, during these live streams. So no response yet. I'm gonna go ahead and see. Can anyone hear me? Question mark. So that's always the hope, right? That it can be heard. I'm hoping the cats. Okay, we're talking about Enoch from Land of the Lost. Gosh, I think I saw, a handful of episodes of that. Okay, good. Everybody can see me and hear me. That's fantastic. All right. Now it says the chat rate is 0 and the concurrent viewers are 0. So again, not sure what is going on with that. So I've been awake since 1 a.m. It is 8:38 a.m. Sorry about the delay. You know, when your brain's not functioning all the way. Every little thing slows you down extra. So Chaco was in here being the worst. And he's the best, so I don't know why he was being so bad. Krampus is MIA, which is good for these. And Coconut is here, but she is sleeping, so we won't wake her up. The other 2 cats are never in this room. They're just not too big of a fan. So I want to try doing icebreakers with you guys, just some funky icebreakers, I guess. So what is the worst thing you ever tasted? So food or drink, not like, oh yeah, I accidentally, I was cleaning up my dog's droppings and then I went to eat a sandwich and I accidentally got the droppings. I didn't realize it was on my finger and then I ate it accidentally. Oops. Not talking like that. So we're talking about food or drink that as soon as you tasted it, you're like, this is the immediate regret is what you had to say. Pineapple on pizza. How do I, you guys are killing me. So much hate for the tropical fruit. I got coconut milk in this tea, man. You guys, come on. Come on now. Pineapple on pizza. I think I'm just going to do a stream just eating like a pineapple on pizza mukbang. So that's it. Love pineapple, but not on pizza. I think I'm going to make pineapple into a pizza. Take a pineapple, make it a pizza crust, and go from there. I think the worst thing that I've ever had, liverwurst, okay? Drawing a blank, okay? Liverwurst, I think it was more like liver than I had anticipated when I tried it. And then, how could I complain? It says it in the name, right? It's like, oh, this tastes too much like liver, said me, recognizing the name as liverwurst. I just kind of had that thought process. I guess I was just expecting it to taste more like another type of wurst, another type of sausage. Instead it was just like, no, it's just liver in a tube. That's about it. I feel like there's cat hair all over my face, so just give me a sec. For me, I do have a liver story. So when I first came to Korea, they gave me these. We went out as the teachers. There's these they're not really company dinners. Company dinners kind of implies a type of businessness you're still expected to maintain, like a working distance, you know what I mean? But in Korea they have they're like social gatherings, but it's with your coworkers, managers, and bosses. It's called a 회식. It literally means like social meal. So they brought me to this place. I was still very new to Korea. And we had all these side dishes, and I loved all these side dishes. And they gave me this side dish that was just a bunch of cubes of something that looked raw. Could it be some kind of really red tuna? Is it meat? I wasn't really sure, but I wasn't put off by the concept. I mean, raw meat, not a big deal to me. So I had some, and it was raw beef liver. At the time, I was not a fan of liver. This incident made me develop a taste for liver because of what happened. So as I ate it, they were encouraging me to eat more. They're like, do you like it? And in my head, I was like, nope. But of course they said, oh yes, it's nice. So they kept encouraging me to have more. And eventually I'm like chugging through this, and I ate all of them in this dish. The dish is about this size, so maybe a little bigger. But I was the only one eating from it. Nobody else was eating from it. And I was finished, and they said, oh, did you like it? I'm like, oh yeah, it was super good. And I didn't know at the time you could get the side dishes refilled. So they got it refilled for free, and they said, here, have more. And I'm like, thanks. Of course, it's my fault, right? But yeah, that was exciting. But I that's my liver experience, but I can't say that's the worst thing I've eaten. The worst thing I've eaten is fermented skate. So skate, like a ray from like the shark family. You're going to get that urea, so it's going to give this really strong ammonia smell. And that's what this did. I didn't know what it was, and a friend and I had picked this stuff up, thinking it was sashimi. When we opened it, we had this really strong ammonia smell, so I thought, well, we can't eat it raw. It's kind of starting to go bad, but we can cook it and still eat it so we don't waste the money. And so I had cooked it, and what's weird about skate is the way that it works. Instead of having like muscle grain, there's like these bulbs. Think about like a grapefruit segment, how there's those bulbs that kind of are packed together. During the cooking, they had filled with gas. And as soon as I bit down, all of them popped open and just released gas, into like ammonia gas into my mouth. And I've never in my life spit out a food, but I spit it out as fast as I could. Had no idea. Explained it to some people. They said, oh, you must have had hongo. Hongo is the fermented skate. Okay. So I was at a really nice restaurant thing. It was a dinner with the coworkers thing again, and it was this really nice Korean restaurant, and they brought out some hongo. And I said, my rule is always try a food twice if I don't like it the first time, because maybe the first time it just wasn't prepared to my liking. So tried it this time. You have to have it with a piece of pork belly that's been, I think it's steamed pork belly, a piece of the hongo, and then some kimchi. And you put it into your mouth as like this little stack. Okay, tolerable. But as you eat more of these stacks, you know, at first you kind of see the appeal. There's almost a wasabi-like brightness in your nose. It's not spicy, it's just a brightness back there. But the more you eat, definitely the more it comes out. And I was pretty much done. We had finished this plate, myself and 2 other people. And this big boss, person I've never met, didn't know how to be super respectful in the moment. When he said, did you enjoy it? I'm like, oh yes, thank you so much. And do you want more? So I grabbed the person's knee next to me and I squeezed it, and I was like that, because I didn't know how to say politely, absolutely not. Please, no, not even as a joke. I don't know, I felt like when I was out of this situation, I thought, how come I couldn't articulate myself? But in the situation, you know, sometimes you feel put on the spot. And I get that feeling sometimes. And so that had happened, and I just thought, no, because the only thing I could say, like, all that was screaming within me was to tell him very rudely, no. That was the only, not to be rude to him, but that was the only word coming to my mind. So the person saw that I was smiling and said, yes, she would like another order. Now, this wasn't like the side dishes. They had to pay for a second order of this. So I was like, all right, we're going to do this. Okay. All right. The other person didn't want any more. Okay, now it's just me, and this other person said, I'll help you. So the person took the pork belly, kimchi, and they had left me with just plain hongo. Maybe I can't be an atheist anymore because the devil was real that night, let me tell you. I managed to finish it all, desperately trying to keep it down. It was like, you know, when you try to swallow something that your body's like, this should not be in your mouth. And it's there's something about the texture, the taste, or something that as you try to swallow it, you start gagging. I hadn't had something like that happen since I was like a little kid. And I was just like, no, keep it down. I was just keeping myself together, excused myself to the bathroom when I was finished, and just puked it up. I couldn't leave that in my stomach. I don't know why people eat it. It's not healthy. Some people have this misconception that because it tastes terrible, it is healthy. That ain't it. So, that ain't it. Actually, the worst thing I've ever tasted is a Norwegian cheese called gammalost. It literally means old cheese. It looks like vomit, smells like compost. Can't compare it to anything else. So what does it taste like, though? Let's find out if we can. Gammalost. Let's see what we got here. Wow, it looks like a sponge, doesn't it? Yeah. That doesn't, I mean, I would definitely eat it. I just know I would. But what's this side here? I don't know. It's pretty funky. That's pretty funky. Look how proud this person is. Inflicting this cheese upon others. Look at this. It looks like a sponge, like someone tried to make a sponge out of meatloaf. Like an old meatloaf, and they decided to make a sponge out of it. Or have you guys had this, like, think of it's gonna sound weird if you've never had it, but think of the idea of shredded wheat, but it's beef jerky. Have you guys had something like that? It's from like Southeast Asia. Let me see if I can find it. Pork or beef, and you have it with rice because that's what you do. Yeah, here it is. Pork floss. Let's see. This thing. Yeah, right? It looks kind of... Oh, where did it go? My goodness. I've got one of these open in the back, just so that way I can have a white background to kind of brighten up my face a bit. So this is the pork floss here. Have you ever had it? They have it for beef too. It's dry. So it's like you can have it in a packet and just, it's shelf stable. Yeah. Not biltong. I think biltong is a dried sausage. So this is going to be really dry pork or really dry beef that you shred. And so when you pick it up, it's almost like, it's like shredded wheat or shredded hay. Almost that texture like that you would use to stuff something, like to stuff a toy or to stuff a really old style sofa. That kind of fluffy but slightly dry, granulated kind of feel to it. Yeah. Let's see. Lee is back after survival of the missionaries. It's comforting to know our warrior princess still thrives. You know, speaking of that, I had admired Athena growing up, and I thought, why admire her when I could become her? So I thought that just kind of reminded me of it. I was talking to the students about that, and I don't know, they were talking about I forget exactly what, but it was related to that. And I told him, you know, why, like, you can become your own hero. You know, that's what you can do. You know, you can idolize somebody else, or you can take those ideals and then, you know, change yourself to fit those ideals. If you like what those ideals are, you know, go for it. I was doing some digging the other day at the property, and an animal must have heard my tools and popped out, and guess what? It was an anteater. I immediately thought of you and laughed and let him go. You should have taken a picture. Just you holding this nasty anteater. You gods, is that like strumming but with Ray? No. So we can actually find, let me see here. Fermented skate Korean, because I don't want to change my keyboard right now. There it is. I think there's actually something like this, but it's not surströmming. But there is something like this in Sweden, Norway, and I don't think Finland, but possibly. It's just like rotten shark. So it's going to have the same thing. It smells very strongly like urine. And it's just, yeah. Be careful of this, because when you see it, you know, at first you're just like, oh, this looks kind of like a white fish. And here's those like bulbs I was talking about. So all of those filled with gas. Not a good time. You ever had asafoetida? I don't know how to pronounce that. Asafoetida? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but no, I haven't had hing powder. If I have, I don't know it by that name. Let us find out. Rhizome. No, but it looks good. I have the first one that popped up. I have a spice from that company. It's not really spice, it's citric acid. So if it's from like South Asia, then I would guess it's asafoetida, something like that, as opposed to foetida, because I didn't know if it was an umlaut or not. Let's see. Oh, that's blinking. The cheese reminds me of a carrot cake. Oh. People willingly eat fugu, which may kill you. Go figure. You know what? I've had blowfish. I've had it. I've had the pufferfish out here. It's surprisingly meaty. It's a meaty fish. So, let's see. Gamma Lost just conjures up the opening of the Incredible Hulk, and Dr. Ban is being filled with gamma rays. Yeah, being filled with is supposed to being killed with lutefisk. I've never had it. I've never had it. As far as I know, isn't that fish that's dried and then treated with lye? Isn't that? So I would imagine the texture is different, but I might be totally wrong. Rockfisk is fermented herring. Sorry, trout or char. Okay. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't. I would definitely try it for sure. I'm not put off by fermented things. I like fish. We used to have this thing that we ate at home. There were these little fishes that were pickled in this jar, just these tiny fish with like their faces and everything. We eat something that's like haggis, which I've eaten. Awesome. But the herbs and spices are different. Oh, I imagine it'd be so good though. Trying to think of something typical Dutch yet disgusting. Let me know when you do. Salty herring, but it's actually quite nice. I believe it. Tree gum spice has an objectionable fetid smell, but it tastes like leek after cooking. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So is it asafoetida then, maybe? That is interesting. Why have it? Is it just for the leakiness of it, or I wonder if I can order it on this site where I always get my stuff. All right. Well, I know you guys didn't come here to talk about food, but if anybody has any drinks or foods that are native to the area that they do want to recommend, that's also acceptable, as we go to talk about our good friend Enoch going through his, I don't know, what would you call it? Now, as I was reading the first parable, which is where we're going to read the parables, and then we're going to read the first parable today. Because I don't have a migraine, and you know, as much fun as these are, unfortunately, that type of sitting and constant talking, that's not good for me. Also, just in case anybody was curious, we are still doing online classes. Sometimes they are purely online, and sometimes they're this weird, like, half online, half on campus, where I'm teaching 2 different classes at the same time. I don't know what it is, but it ain't it. So that's not how you want to do it. Now, I'm not saying teachers have a harder time than students. I think everyone's having just a hard time. Yeah. So it's just not a good time. Stay home. Keep your masks on. Wash your hands. All that good stuff. Yeah. Here for the trippy madness. I know. If we're feeling really good, though, then we can go on to the second parable. But I haven't read it yet. So we're going to get prepped here with the parables. And so this is the second vision of Enoch. And Enoch had the first vision. That was the one that he like goes... It was everything we talked about before, basically. About the Watchers. And then where he kind of visits these different places around the earth. Sees the ends of the earth. Sees the stars that are being tortured. What else did Enoch do? What do you guys remember that Enoch did? Because I remember stuff that Enoch did, but I don't know how much you guys are retaining. If you guys plan to retain, I don't know if you're just hanging out and just killing time, if you're learning anything. So what so far on Enoch's first vision has been the most striking, interesting, outlandish type of thing for you? So while we're doing that, I'm going to try these too. We've got an apple sparkling water, which I've never had. And this place, it's called Cider. Let me tell you. So this is just like a lemon lime soda, but this is finally zero, so it's 0 calorie, which they've never released until now. So that's quite a shock. You know, for as praised as thinness is in Korea, there's a surprising absence of like diet friendly foods. Huge absence. So it's called Cider, and it's like Sprite. It's 7-Up. That's all it is. But I didn't know that. So when I was first in Korea, you know, somebody said, "Hey, do you want some cider?" You know, it was my mentor teacher, and I was like, and I was at work. You know, I was between classes, and "Hey, you want some cider? Can we have that at work, at school?" And they said, yeah. Okay. I'm like, wow, Korea's really different. We get to get drunk at the school. We're drinking in school. And they come back with this like Dixie cup full of, little paper cup, full of Sprite. And I was just like, oh, this is not cider. I was really surprised. Yeah. And it's not even pronounced cider, it's cider. So cider. Cider. Yeah. But we did drink at that school. I'm sure it's illegal now, but yeah, no, we did drink at that school. So they were making their own infused soju at the school. So that was pretty funky. Tastes like Diet Sprite. You got it. So the question again, let me go ahead and post it. Sometimes as I'm still talking, kind of gets lost in the sauce. What part of Enoch's journey so far have you been has been most interesting to you? All right. There is no Coke, only cola. Yes. Oh my gosh. Can I show that? Let me see if I can find it. The cola lady. This one I've had to show to my students to let them know why you need to focus on your pronunciation back when I was teaching English. Let's see. What do we got? Please give me Coke. Okay. That's it, isn't it? You guys know this? Oh, good. I'm glad you're joining us today. I don't know what I clicked on, so we're gonna... Okay. Pause it. Alrighty. Let me know if you guys have seen this. Let's get my speakers up. Boosh. Sound up.
And next one. Please give me cock. Cock. It's cock. It's in English. I still remember the first time I went to America. I was at the airplane. I asked flight attendants that, can I get a cola? And she asked me, excuse me? I keep saying, cola, cola, cola. But it was not cola, it was cock. It was cock. It's cock actually, right? So maybe a few Korean people could understand if you just say cock, but most people cannot understand. Do you have cock? Remember cock? It's not cock in Korean. What's cock? So do you have? What do you have? Good. So cock. And they said yes. What's yes?
All right, so that is that. I'm going to turn off the speaker because I get some alerts and I don't need you guys, or you guys don't need to be hearing the bing kind of noises. Yeah, so this is, so one thing I tell the students is, first of all, it's Coca-Cola. And if you go to, your Walmart or something, they're going to have a generic version. It's going to be called cola or some name cola. So this example she gave of when I was on the airplane, I was asking for cola. Nobody understood what I meant. I really think she just was making that up, quite frankly. The only thing that might have caused that is just maybe her accents, because cola, cola, we don't say, which is weird because Koreans don't pronounce it that way either, because they always put their pronunciation on the first syllable, so it'd be cola instead of cola, cola. I don't know why she was pronouncing it that way, but maybe with the noise and stuff, maybe the flight attendant was confused by that. So I don't know why she said that. Koreans also have an O, so I don't know why many of them pronounce it with this O kind of sound. There's like cola, it has that O, so why not Coke? Why Coke? I don't know. But that's not just her. A lot of the Koreans pronounce it that way. So she is teaching online and she teaches English. And that's kind of the reason that foreigners are brought in to teach English, because a lot of the Koreans that teach English don't know how to pronounce English. And that's clearly a problem when you're trying to communicate with people. Yeah, not a good time. Yeah, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's not how you pronounce the alphabet. That's not everybody. But the problem is that English is part of the Korean school curriculum, starting in grade 3, but a lot of parents put their kids in like these tutoring as early as 19 months. They'll have like a nanny who also teaches them English. And they do that because they want to compete globally, but everybody knows their pronunciation is terrible and they can only communicate like with emails. So they feel really, and then Korea's like a very perfectionist kind of society as well in general. So there's this feeling of, I don't speak perfect English. I don't want people to make fun of me. And they feel like, I gotta spend extra money and extra time as an adult trying to learn how to pronounce English from foreigners. And it's just like, the whole point of that being added to the curriculum to make students suffer through this is to make them basically fluent in English. And so to completely undermine that just to take tests that are written by Koreans to get into Korean school, I don't know. And the tests are like written tests, so I don't know. Not a good time. Let's see. That book is such a mess. Where do we begin? Right. I made the same mistake a few times. Yeah, so did my buddy. I showed this to him. He's like, why is this funny? And I had to explain to him, And so we watched it again, and then he just died. So we were talking about that. But yeah, he had no idea, and I'm like, yeah, please don't go to like New York City and have some and say, please give me cock, because I just don't want to do that. And I also tell the students that I'm very sorry, but for some reason, every time there's a mispronunciation or just a phrase that gets slightly changed, for some reason, a lot of times it becomes sexual. Like, I spent the night at my friend's house. And we slept in the same bed. Totally fine. I slept with my friend. And you know, it's grammatically fine. It sounds normal, right? If you translate, okay, that makes sense. But without that additional context, like, they have no idea. Yeah. I thought cola was a universal word. I did too. That's why I think that it's, because that's a type of drink it is. It is a cola, just like this is a soda, right? This is a lemon lime soda. That's how I described it and said such as, you know, Sprite or 7-Up. So I don't know. I don't know where that concept came from. So if it wasn't completely made up, it had to be her pronunciation. Yeah. The diet version is like Diet Coke. That's how it's spelled on the bottle. So at least one word is rightish. No. It's here it's we have Coke Zero, but it's Jetto Cola. So it's different. Yeah. What if she pronounces diet a bit like giant? No, you can't confuse those. The D type of sound is actually a little bit harder. No, softer than RD. It's not going to sound like a J. Yeah. But I see what you're saying about the giant Coke. But no, she would probably ask for it as a zero Coke instead of a zero cola. But probably Jetto. And what is Jetto? Jello? What are you trying to say, right? So that's where it becomes a problem, yeah. Sodas, pops, or drinks. I always stick with a safe word in other countries. Right, or just ask for it by name. Coca-Cola, 7-Up, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, something like that. Just yesterday, my Asian girlfriend, oh no, the beach, but she pronounced it wrong. That was the one that I was thinking of. Because I saw a shirt for a child that I think probably wanted to say Blue Beach, but it wrote it the different way. Yeah, so that was it. So those words sound exactly the same in Korean, or with the Konglish pronunciation, I should say, because they're different words in Korean, like totally different words. But yeah. On that note, let's go ahead and we'll talk about the parables. All right. So Enoch has this second vision, and we get to kind of know Enoch's lineage a bit. So he's the son of Jared, the son of Mahalalel, which could be like one of my cousin's names, the son of Canaan, the son of Enos, the son of Seth, the son of Adam. So that's kind of how far we are away from Adam. If you guys were curious, if not, well, you know anyway. Okay. So he starts to speak to people on Earth, and he's basically he says, listen, I'm telling you this stuff. This came from Yahweh. Okay. And it says, it were better to declare them only to the men of old time, but even from those that come after, we will not withhold the beginning of wisdom. I'm going to make this slightly bigger for myself. I thought it would be fine with just my glasses, but nope. Till the present day, such wisdom has never been given by the Lord of Spirits, as I have received according to my insight, according to the good pleasure of the Lord of Spirits, by whom the lot of eternal life has been given to me. Now he's going to share 3 parables. Not quite humble brag, right? That was what I was thinking when I was reading this, that it was just what a boastful thing to say. I mean, I get it, you want to show your credentials, like I'm Enoch and I'm this guy and God loves me, but did you have to throw in that he gave you eternal life? Don't you think people be a little bit jealous? You know what I mean? So, kind of funky, I think. All right. Let's see what you guys have said. I think we deserve a star for keeping this pupil friendly. Yes, exactly. Maybe they were just a really sad, cool female. I see. Could be a child. There's one that I can't say. That'll definitely one that I can't say. But it was a mistake. They had mistranslated, and this is why if you guys need to translate something into another language and you're looking for a word, my recommendation is to do that in like Google Translate, copy the translation and put it into Google image search, see what comes up. Because sometimes the word cat, when you put goyangi, which is cat in Korean, you put that into Google Translate, it'll come up with cat, but then there's a couple other ones. One of them similar to the name Puss in Boots, but with a Y added to it. And so they'll put that instead of cat or kitten. And of course, if they had copied and pasted that into Google image search, they would find that this is not the word they want to use on its own. Pussycat, okay. Puss, okay. But not the one by itself. And so when you see, I bought it. I fell to my knees laughing. It was this chopstick set. And it was like for children. And it was just 2 small chopsticks that are about, child size, that long or so. And it was in a plastic snap case. So you would pop it open, take out your chopsticks, pop it back down. So this would be for like a lunchbox. And it said, "I love kittens," all over it. Yeah. I immediately bought all of them and sent them to my friends. So that was interesting. Yeah, but hey, marketing, I guess it worked. Yeah. Pulls out blunt instrument. Let's see how eternal that life is, shall we? Right? I mean, wouldn't you? I don't know. I'd be like, all right, Enoch. Oh, cool. He's going to tell us what Yahweh says. Hey, guys. Okay. Yeah, Enoch is... Okay, you're great. Okay, Enoch, get started. Like, what are we doing? But some of you might be shouting that at me right now. So the first parable. When the congregation of the righteous shall appear, and sinners shall be judged for their sins, and shall be driven from the face of the earth. And when the righteous one shall appear before the eyes of the righteous, whose elect works hang upon the Lord of spirits, and light shall appear to the righteous and to the elect that dwell on the earth, or who dwell on the earth. Where then will be the dwelling of sinners, and the resting place of those who denied the Lord of spirits? It had been good for them if they had not been born. Now, I thought it was a little bit interesting, because when we read this, it almost sounds like this older concept of the dead just die versus the righteous can continue on. This also has some, I guess, overlap, or can call back to like the old Egyptian Book of the Dead, where it was this idea that you either made it to the afterlife or you were just snuffed out of existence, right? So it almost sounds like this, where the righteous go into this like glory of God, and then the sinners are snuffed out. But we saw that's not the case, right? We saw in one of the previous visions that Enoch had told us about, they are being held in this place to be judged. What's going to happen to them, I guess we don't know, but it almost makes it sound like, without having that knowledge beforehand, it almost sounds like once you die, this is when this happens. And that's one thing that I think is always a good argument against Muslim or Christian claims of near-death experiences, where a person begins to ascend to heaven or begins to go to the respective version of hell. That can't happen in their worldview. Now, maybe it's true, maybe it's happening, and their book just got it wrong. But that can't happen in their worldview, because just as Enoch said, you're in a place waiting. That's why we say rest in peace. That's what the rest is. The soul is resting. And then on Judgment Day, all souls are judged, sent to wherever, and then, life continues. So it's not like the end of the world. It just kind of continues. It's in the world as we know it. And I feel fine, right? It's the end of our current incarnation of the world, and it keeps going. Whether you keep going with it, whether you're punished, whether you're snuffed out, that's a little based on which interpretation you go with. But it doesn't happen until Judgment Day. And so this idea of a near-death experience where someone is taken into heaven and meets Jesus and sees all their dead relatives and does not at all line up with Christian or Muslim theology at all. So it's kind of interesting that people have that idea. There's a kitten's energy drink. Oh dear. I think it's still on Amazon. That's not something that would inspire me to have energy, unless it literally said like kitten's energy. The type of energy of a kitten where you spin around for no reason, get caught in a plastic bag, run around the house stuck in the plastic bag, and then fall asleep because you're a tired little kitten. So this is just more of what we kind of heard before, which is, I don't know, kind of funky. All right. Enoch is kind of repetitive here. I mean, we've already heard this stuff. So like you can't behold the face of God. Okay. So that was interesting. But basically it's better for you if you've never been born rather than being a sinner. Okay. So the kings and the mighty shall perish, and be given into the hands of the righteous and the holy, and thenceforth none shall seek for themselves mercy from the Lord of spirits, for their life is at an end. And again, this would be after judgment, because as Enoch told us, they're just kind of hanging out together. Okay. So we're going off to the next chapter. Let me see what y'all is writing. No additional comments. That's totally fine. So it shall come to pass. I really don't like that phrase. It just sounds like, how can I make this sound like the Bible? It shall come to pass that in those days that the elect and holy children will descend from the high heaven, and their seed will become one with the children of men. Now that one was very frustrating for me to read, because as you guys may remember, I totally was siding with the Watchers. I felt really bad for the Watchers. Totally understood. I felt like their behavior in the story was reasonable, right? Reasonable, if not justified. And they are so punished for this. And then here it says, and then everyone's just going to mix together. Can you imagine being a Watcher then? I almost feel like it's not cultural appropriation, but you know what I mean? Where it's like you see somebody, they're doing this thing, you're like, that's the dumbest thing, low class, you should be punished for that. And then a couple years later, that person's like copying that same thing. Yeah, just not... I was very frustrated for the Watchers' characters when I read this, yeah. So Enoch received books of zeal and wrath and books of disquiet and expulsion. For me, this just made me think of like spell books or something. You know, if you're playing a sorcerer character, like the Book of Zeal that you would read a passage from, and then it casts a type of paladin enhancing spell or something. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see what you guys are writing. That's all right. No writing. That's totally fine. So let me make this bigger again. And mercy shall not be accorded to them, saith the Lord of spirits. And in those days a whirlwind carried me off of the earth and set me down at the end of the heavens. And so we still have that concept that there's an end, like a hard end to earth with a dome. So we have that flat earth with a dome, and then there's stuff underneath it. We saw columns of fire. Enoch told us about columns of fire that the earth was kind of sitting upon in a way. And so here we see that end of the heavens. And there I saw another vision, the dwelling places of the holy and the resting places of the righteous. Here mine eyes saw their dwellings with his righteous angels, and the resting places with the holy. And they petitioned and interceded and prayed for the children of men, and the righteousness flowed before them as water. Now, when I was reading this, I was thinking almost like what's that word? A mirage, right? Where you get that heat haze. I was just kind of thinking that could be what it looks like. And mercy and like dew upon the earth. Thus it is amongst them forever and ever. And in that place mine eyes saw the elect one of righteousness and of faith. Can't we just call him Yahweh or the God or something? I was always thrown off by this when I was trying to read the Bible, like as a child. I was thinking, did you hear that? What was that? Sorry. Coconut and I both heard a very funky noise. Yeah, I just thought, why so many titles? And then when you're kind of coming back and, reading something like this, it's almost gives you that feeling, because we don't know everything that Enoch is talking about. Like the Watchers, for example, doesn't really show up in the Bible. It's referenced there a bit, but the idea of them like named and all this other stuff, when we're talking about the stars in the heaven, are we talking about stars in the cosmos? Are we talking about light as if a star, because they're righteous, because they're angels, literally in heaven? So I really, I don't like this. So it can be interpreted a couple ways, but yeah, we're talking about the elect one, the Lord of Spirits, the one who's a capital H, him. So that is all talking about Yahweh. Yeah. Let's see. So he sees him, and his righteousness prevails in his days, and the righteous and elect shall be without number before him forever and ever. So again, we're all just hanging out in front of Yahweh, saying he's awesome, and just praying about how great he is. And the righteous and elect before him shall be strong as fiery lights, and their mouths shall be full of blessing. Their lips extol the name of the Lord of spirits and righteousness and all of that goodness, right? And my spirit longed for that dwelling place, and there heretofore hath been my portion, for so it has been established concerning me before the Lord of spirits. And in this case, my portion, if you're not familiar with that phrasing in English, it's like my peace for me, like peace, P-I-E-C-E, not P-E-A-C-E. So it's almost like this is your future, Enoch. This is where you're going to get to hang out forever. Which again, I mean, let's be honest, doesn't sound, That's what you're doing for the rest of eternity, huh? Just sitting in front of a dude that you can't even look at because his face is so righteously holy, and just saying, wow, that is one holy face. Did you see this guy's face? Well, not literally, because it's so holy. Oh my gosh, it's so holy. Ah, bless this guy, holy. And you're just doing that forever. I guess if it was Trixie Mattel and Katya doing that, I would definitely watch it. I would be there for that. I would scooch over next to them and just like silently mouth something just so I could hear them sarcastically praising Yahweh there, because I think they could turn it into something super funny, but that's all you're doing for the rest of your life, And that was one thing that we were told when I was growing up in that church cult, right? It was this idea that heaven is worshiping Jesus forever. That's what it was. And back when I was Christian, Pentecostals are very slain in the spirit and, overcome with the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, and doing all this like shouting and jumping. So it seemed like something exciting in a way. And then the idea that if God, like you're in the presence of God, so you have no choice but to be happy. You would be fulfilled. So for me at that time, I thought, okay, that's what it is. Cool. I look forward to that kind of thing. I was a little bit surprised by other Christians' interpretations, though. This idea that it's a place where you can go and like you relax and do whatever you like. You can see all of your family and all of your friends, and you get to know people and their life story and all this other stuff, right? That's not really in the Bible as far as I remember from my reading of it, and we can see it's not that here either. So this idea that that's all you're doing. That's it. So you're just kind of standing among innumerable individuals, and there's just a cloud of noise directed at Yahweh. That's it. You don't spend time with your friends. You don't visit with old family members. You don't do any of that. It has nothing to do with you. It's not a reward for you. I would say the only reward here is that you're not being punished. Or the only reward here is that to be next to Yahweh is to bask in glory. And so it's sort of like lying out in the sun on that first nice day of spring. Do you know what I mean? Where you're just happy just because you got to do that. Right? That, I think, is the only positive of being rewarded for righteousness. And when you hear that, when you think about that, that doesn't really sound like an afterlife, does it? You're not living. And I don't mean in a physical body. I mean, what kind of life is that? To just stand at the foot of a throne like an addict, constantly being fed their drug of choice. And that's all you're doing. That's it. You're not learning anything new. You're not getting to know any other people. You're not having any social interaction. Nothing. You're just standing there infused with this drug. And that's all you're doing is just shouting, this drug is awesome, over and over and over and over and over again for all eternity. That's heaven. That's the biblical heaven. That's what it is. So this idea that some people have said, especially after I made those videos, after a death in the family where people were like, oh, well, don't you ever want to see that person again? Gosh, you should totally convert. That's not even what it is. Even if I totally converted, believed it, and if it was totally true, when I died, I wouldn't see them again. I wouldn't interact with them again because this is all I would be doing. It's almost like if you plug everybody into their own, like a face mask of like laughing gas almost. And that's all the person is able to do is talk about the greatness of this particular feeling. And that's it for the rest of eternity. They don't interact with anybody. They're just doing that. Doesn't sound too great, does it? Let me see what you guys have to say. So are you oneness, Pentecostal, or what's considered mainline? I don't know what's considered mainline. We did not use the phrase oneness, though. AOG, Assemblies of God. I know there's also the UP, United Pentecostal. That wasn't us. Yeah. I was told that too, I'll be honest. I was like, this is the same dude that frowns upon vanity. Right. It threw me into a dark place for a while, for sure. And that what was so weird was that God gives you free will so that way you can choose to love him because he doesn't want robots, and then you go to heaven and you're just a robot. What? I think for me a high point would be Lee shooting a 3-pointer on LeBron James, even if it was a fluke, just to see it would be killer. Yeah, and I would have to do it totally ridiculous so that if it happened, it would be super cool. Because if I miss, well, of course, everyone would expect me to. But it would be one of those things where, like, I would turn around and throw it back over my head or something. That would be pretty cool. Against diminishing utility, or all good things are followed by bad things. Yeah, that's true. So this idea that God allows the bad to happen because that lets you appreciate the good. Let me tell you, I appreciated my ability to run long before I lost it. So anybody that tells you that, no. But this idea of, yeah, you can't enjoy something that's good without there being bad, comma, except for heaven. You know, it's got special pleading written all over it. Sounds a bit like crazy emperors who rewarded their most loyal followers by having them buried with the emperor when he dies so they can guard him forever. Yeah, I would say that's kind of on that level. I thought about my family all day. Maybe God never had Christmas family dinners. No. There's just no need to. AOG, that's it. One is Pentecostal. believe that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are all Christ, just modes. They reject the Trinity. Oh, that's interesting. The way that they described it to us is like a triangle, that each part of God is an angle, but and then the triangle is the God concept, and that each piece or each angle was the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Spirit. And so if you took one away, it ceases being a triangle. So if you take one away, it ceases being the God Trinity, which it was one of those things where you wanted it to make sense, so it made sense, but it doesn't actually make sense. In the early church, they were split. Some people really just thought, oh yeah, Jesus, as a prophet, just a guy. Some people thought Jesus was God, and others were like, Jesus was the Son of God, Jesus is an angel, so they weren't really sure, and Jesus is God happened to win out. But then how could we be monotheist if Jesus is God and Yahweh is God? And then where does the Holy Spirit fit into this? If this is Jesus leaving this with us, then that's God with us. How does that work? And so they had to create this Trinity concept that doesn't show up in the Bible, but does show up in Hinduism as a Trimurti, which was Brahma, Shiva, Brahma, not Brahman, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Yeah. Let's see. The one with the est and non-est lines. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. What was I saying? Est and non-est? You have to try to elaborate on that just a bit, Menno. Also, we didn't do the snake handling. The reason wasn't because we didn't have faith in it. It was because thou shalt not test the Lord thy God. And so the idea was that if you are walking around in like the desert, this Mediterranean biome kind of near, desert adjacent kind of place where snakes are going to hang out, and one of them bites you and it is venomous, that God will protect you from that venom. But if you try to test God's promise by surrounding yourself with these snakes, then God is not going to protect you, because thou shalt not test the Lord thy God. That's the reason we didn't. Yeah. Like, that's the only reason we didn't. Which gets me sometimes. This idea that I would have pretty much done anything as long as it was hinted at hard enough by the church. Yeah, when you're in that deep, you're in that deep, man. Let's see, the Trinity Triangle. Brahman is the monad. Yeah, the Brahman is the Brahmin is the social class. The Brahman is like the absolute everything, as far as I understand. The Trinity concept really threw me. How does one sit at the right hand of himself? Right. So this concept, I remember we had this speaker. He was one of the church deacons, but I didn't really know what a deacon does. But basically a deacon is like a member of the church who's kind of trusted to do stuff, but he's not a pastor. And so we had this deacon that I knew, and for some reason he was giving this not social studies, this Sunday school kind of speech. I don't know why. And he was talking about how, like, in the 9th dimension, three-dimensional objects can coexist in the same place at the same time, and God transcends dimension, blah, blah, blah. We've calculated dimensions out to 11th dimension, blah, blah. And for me, that made a lot of sense. I felt so good. Finally, a mathematical way that I can explain the Trinity, which didn't really make sense after I thought about it for a little bit, because I was like, how can I tell my those like kids at school, like, how can I evangelize with this? And then I realized, well, wait a minute, we don't think that God is a three-dimensional object. So if we're talking about the Holy Ghost and Jesus and Yahweh, and we believe all of them have a spiritual form, they're not 3D. So this whole concept of trying to justify that they can coexist in the same space at the same time, if that's true, doesn't make sense. So, oops. Let's see, plurality in the Godhead, yet singular in purpose. It seemed intriguing to me. Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu of the triad came to mind. Right. Let's see, the Trinity Triangle. Someone should really go after God for not paying child support. He didn't just ignore his son, but depended on him for a massive bailout. I feel like there's like a Trump reference somewhere. Isn't there the body of Christians in Stone Mountain, Georgia, that do the snake handling to prove their devotion? Yes, so they are Pentecostal as well. But we occasionally, I forget, it was whenever we were talking about like the Acts of the Apostles, whenever we would talk about Acts, the pastor would just kind of bring it up in passing. Oh yeah, and there are some Pentecostals that do that, but while we believe that God can protect us as long as we have enough faith in him, we don't do that because we're not testing God. So to put ourselves, it's sort of like you put on a seatbelt and trust that God's going to keep you safe, rather than saying, God, you will keep me safe, and then like testing him by going out into traffic without looking both ways, stuff like that. Let's see. But sir, regarding your statement, it's contradiction with the nano, the beginning of Lee Lemon raising hand in the back. I always thought church should be participatory. I always did. Yeah. That was hard because like you'd either raise your hand and try to say something and it threw them off, and so they just didn't want to get to it because I think when you're a pastor, you expect to preach, not to interact. And when someone attempts to interact, that's funky. But then, like the second time and after that, just nobody called on me because they could just write it off as, oh, this one is slain in the spirit, just raising their hands to God, that kind of thing. So I used to take notes and then ask about them afterward. Sometimes I got the answers, and sometimes I didn't. So, but I didn't do that to be rude or anything. I didn't do that as like budding atheism. It was because I wanted to know more, and as it was read or as it was written, it didn't really make enough sense to me. Yeah, one that I did that really stuck with me, was this idea of Moses didn't do this thing that Yahweh wanted, so the Spirit of God sought Moses to kill him. And then Moses, his wife, like, immediately throws a foreskin in front of the Spirit of God to prove their devotion of circumcision or something. And God's like, okay, cool, adios. And I went to ask the pastor about this afterwards, and I said, it says the Spirit of God sought to kill Moses. When God wants to do something, he does it. And to suggest that he changed his mind because of something Moses did, that means that God either never sought to kill him, which means that this is wrong, or that God's mind can be changed, which goes against the idea that the will of God is this thing that we should all obey, and we have to obey it whether we like it or not. And the pastor responded, well, you're right, of course. God doesn't, he can't be swayed by somebody petitioning him, right? If it's God's will, it's God's will. If it's not, it's not. But remember, God did not write the Bible. The Bible was written by people. And the person who wrote this passage had believed that that was the reason God sought to kill him. Of course, if that really was the reason, God would have killed Moses on the spot. He didn't, so that must not have been the reason God was seeking Moses. But because that person was so scared for Moses, and Moses was scared in that moment, that's what they had believed was going to happen. And I said, okay. And that satisfied me. Very briefly. Because I don't think that pastor realized what door that opened. And the door that it opened was, well, wait a minute. If everything is just people's interpretation of what happened, what if Sodom and Gomorrah was just like a meteor shower and God had nothing to do with it? What if the Great Flood was just a flood and they just thought it was a wrath of God? Well, what if this other thing was just this thing? Well, what if this battle they won, they just won, but they said God did it for them? Well, what does that mean? And that really started it. That pastor didn't realize, I don't think, that he had opened the door. Yeah. Buddhist statues with Trump's head got some attention in China. It is believed to bring fortune to the owners. Why? Because it's a pig? Sorry. The pigs are considered like lucky and of good fortune. That was the joke, but Obyung understands that. I was just explaining to you guys. So yes, so in those days I extolled the name of the Lord of Spirits with blessings and praises because he hath, now this was an interesting one for me to read, because he hath destined me for blessing and glory according to the good pleasure of the Lord of Spirits. So I had to double check with this when the Book of Enoch was found, because this really sounds like Calvinism, doesn't it? In the Book of Enoch, I was like, isn't that later? But I just double checked. It is later. So the Calvinists did not have this, but that sounds a lot like predestiny. But the Calvinists, I also think, have good enough scriptural backing for their interpretation of predestiny, I would say. One great example is, oh gosh, what verse was that? Let me try to find it real quick. I don't remember exactly. That's not it. Is it Isaiah? It must be. We're going to look here. Hopefully you guys can see it. So, woe to those who quarrel with their maker, those who are nothing but the potsherds among the potsherds on the ground. Does the clay say to the potter, what are you making? Does your work say the potter has no hands? So it's one of these ideas, and this was kind of brought together with the idea of in Exodus about Yahweh hardening Moses' heart, right? Is that, or not Moses' heart, sorry, the Pharaoh's heart. Is that the Pharaoh's fault now for doing the thing that Yahweh had set him up to do? That wasn't his fault. He took away his free will. And so that was one of the verses that was always kind of referenced to us, which was, God does with you what he will. And that's also found in Job as well. It doesn't matter what you do. So if you read Job, and after all this is happening, Job, he reaches out to God, and he keeps beseeching God, like, what did I do that, like, what sin am I committing without my knowledge? And his friends, I mean, the whole, I don't know, we'll read Job, because I was told whenever I was having a hard time and like wanting to question God, I was always, read the story of Job, it'll make sense to you. I did, and when I finished, I was just like, that makes it worse. So Job is he's a good guy, having a good time, being good and righteous, and Satan and Yahweh make this bet that Satan is like, Job's only good to you, or Job only worships you because you give him good stuff, so if you don't give him good stuff, he'll stop worshiping you. And Yahweh's like, no, he's just obsequious. He just worships me. So he allowed Satan to take things from Job as long as he doesn't kill Job. But he could kill his servants, he could kill his kids, he can kill his animals and all that. So Job sees his stuff going. He's dying, or his children are dying, his animals are dying, his servants are dying. He keeps praising God, and his friends are like, dude, what did you do? Like, why is God so mad at you? And he's like, I didn't do anything. I don't know what happened. They're like, nah, man, you must have done something bad. You are lying, man. He's like, I swear I haven't done anything. I've been the same old Job, and for some reason all this catastrophe has happened. And his friends are like, you're lying, Job, you gotta just admit it. And he's like, I will admit it if I know what it is. I don't want to be living my life with sin, especially if it's causing me so much heartache and it's killing the people I love. And so he keeps screaming out to Yahweh, please just tell me what I did so I can atone for it and move on with my life. And as he's doing that, Yahweh shows up, and he's like, excuse me, who the hell do you think you is telling me what to do? I'm God. If I want to do it, I'm gonna do it. You being worshiping me That doesn't have anything to do with anything. If I want to do this to you, I'm going to do this to you. If I want to bless you, I'm going to bless you. If I want to curse you, I'm going to curse you. And whatever you do, your little prayers and whatever, none of it means anything. And Job was like, well, wait a minute. Wait, what? I thought I was doing the right thing. He's like, were you there when I created the universe? Were you there when I created the sun? Were you there? No. Who are you to talk back to me? Who are you to ask me about my ways? I am Yahweh. I am the best. I am amazing. I will do whatever I want. So do not question me. So Job doesn't actually get the answer of what happened, which of course sounds like any other person caught in a lie, doesn't it? Where you promised this thing, you didn't follow through with it, the person calls you out on it, and you start screaming at the person instead. Replaces everything by like giving Job new kids, which is not the same as raising his old kids from the dead. But that's the story of Job, right? So I think the Calvinists really have this, like, I think a fair reading of the Bible does show predestination, for sure. I would say that. Yeah, I don't know how aware you guys were of the book of Job. Let's see. I think in many ways, Augustine of Hippo was the real father of what we call Calvinism, okay? The Gnostic theology in the Old Testament, God is evil or ignorant, lesser deity, which is just as obvious when you read the right. That's what I felt as well. So like when you're reading, what is it, the Gospel of Judas, it's funky. You're like, this, I can see why this was left out of the Bible, but is it really wrong according to the theology? Not really, you know. So some of the stuff that's written in there about Yahweh being a jerk, or even Jesus being a jerk, I'm like, and they're like, oh, that's why it was left out, because it says negative things. I'm like, I don't know, man. The stuff that was left in the Bible is pretty negative. You know, Jesus was kind of a jerk in the Bible. So, you know, it's kind of funky. Anyway, that little Calvinist tangent we were predestined to go on. Back to Enoch. For a long time, my eyes regarded this place. I blessed him, praised him, saying, blessed is he, and may he be blessed from the beginning and forevermore. I always thought that was strange when we would sing, like, blessed is he. What does it mean? Because to be blessed is to, like, receive blessing. To me, it was always, I always felt in church that it was to receive something beneficial, whether that is protection, money, doing well on a test, getting a new job, or just feeling better about something. You're feeling really bad that day, and you can receive a blessing from God to feel better. So the idea of that we bless God, I mean, what does Yahweh have that what is Yahweh lacking that we could give him? You know, that just seems so strange to me. And before him there is no ceasing. He knows the world was created for what it was for, ever, and what will be from generation to generation. So this idea, I think, was interesting to read, because there's this belief that a lot of the Old Testament stuff from the Old Testament God seems like he doesn't have omnipotence. And so here we can see he does know everything. He does know everything here. Those who sleep not bless thee, they stand before thy glory and bless, praise, extol, saying, holy, 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 fill the earth with spirits. And yes, and here my eyes saw those who slept not, they stand before him and bless him. My face was changed, for I can no longer behold. I mean, again, that's literally, they don't even get a break, right? That's a job. That's a job right there. So Enoch sees so many people, and they're all standing before Yahweh. And there's 4 sides of the Lord. He sees 4 presences that are different, and they are angels. So it's weird how he refers to those that sleep not. I would just refer to them as humans. What does that mean? Does that mean that there are non-human spirits that are also praising Yahweh? Are they angels, or are they from another planet? Did Enoch have this kind of concept, or what? So it's kind of an interesting idea. So I learned their names, for the angel that went with me made well their names and showed me all the hidden meanings. So they had these presences. Okay. So the first voice blesses the Lord of Spirits forever and ever. The second voice I heard blessing the elect one and the elect ones who hang upon the Lord of Spirits. The third voice pray and intercedes for those who dwell on earth and supplicates in the name of the Lord of Spirits. And the fourth voice fending off the Satans, plural, and forbidding them to come before the Lord of Spirits to accuse them who dwell on the earth. So Satan's here is going to be like adversaries, the people who are against God, attacking God, that kind of thing. So that's what they're fending off. Not like Lucifer, individual, but the Satan. So Lucifer is a Satan, if that makes sense. I guess the Watchers would also be Satans. So these are adversaries who do things against God's will, if that makes sense. What do we got? All right, so still no questions, which is totally fine. So this is kind of an interesting concept, and for me, the reason I found it interesting is it really, really reminded me of reading the Revelations. The author of Revelations likely did have this text, because we started off this type of study, not today, but the beginning of the Book of Enoch. We started off kind of explaining how this was referenced in the New Testament. So there was knowledge of the Book of Enoch by the people that wrote the New Testament. So I think that was, perhaps this is where some of those came from. And if enough people at that time had heard of the Book of Enoch and had heard of, what the text had said, then reading something like the Revelations, that would have been, for them, oh, that's a reference to this part of the Book of Enoch, as opposed to just this standalone fever dream. So that's kind of where I thought the two would have connected here. So this idea of being surrounded and having that kind of... It's not communication with Yahweh, is it? They're not communicating anything, are they? They're just talking at him. One that I thought was interesting was the third voice, that it prays and intercedes for those who dwell on the earth and supplicate the name of the Lord of Spirits. That's what Catholics believe that Mary does, or that saints do. So there's just something there for that. Which is interesting as well, because remember, heaven was not aware of the Watchers' behavior until there were a bunch of souls banging or screaming about this. So maybe this is where they heard it. People screaming like to the heavens. I don't know. So this is kind of interesting. So after that, I asked the angel of peace who went with me, who showed me everything that is hidden, who were these four presences which I have seen and whose words I have written down. He said to me, well, the first one's Michael, merciful and long-suffering. The second, who is set over all the diseases and all the wounds of the children of men, is Raphael. Raphael, sir, where are you during this pandemic, sir? I mean, Raphael, we need to talk. Okay, what's going on? What's going on with this? Okay. And the third, who is set over the powers, is Jibrael or Gabriel. I just prefer to keep that Michael, Raphael, Jibrael. And the fourth, who set over the repentance unto hope to those who inherit eternal life, is Phanuel. So we've heard of the first three, not sure how many have heard of the last one, okay? Also the Jibrael, that's like more of the, I don't know, maybe we can get some help from Shuggle. But I know that name Gabriel comes from Jibrael, from the Arabic, or also Gabor. So that's another one it comes from. What was the scope of the Book of Enoch? Did it only reach Israel, or did it spread far and wide, where it influenced other readers and nations from outside? So as far as I know, it was only known, at least known, by the authors that are of the texts that ended up in the New Testament. So they would have known about it. When was it buried or lost? That one I'm not 100%. It was found like right before 1950. So it was lost for quite some time. And they found it, I forgot exactly where they found it, but it wasn't like, oh, it was found in some place where Tom Hanks would have gone in the Da Vinci Code or something. Let me see. The Book of Enoch. Where did it come from? Cool, that sounds like a good thing. Okay. Let's see. Ethiopic manuscripts. Yeah. So they were apparently brought as a chunk that wasn't what's it called? Wasn't by itself, right? So it was a bunch of texts together. So that was brought up in the 18th century, so the 1700s. And then translated later on, and I think it got more popular, perhaps that was the 1948 date, yeah. But it wasn't like it was far-reaching into Europe, is what I think we're asking. But it did go to Ethiopia, and we talked about that, right? The Coptic texts, how this had a reference to Enoch, and how they had more of that connection. So that's kind of an interesting kind of idea. It's very interesting just how developed a religion can become isolated from the rest of the mainstream. It's kind of interesting. So we've got these 4 angels. Tag yourself, okay? So are you Michael, the one that blesses the Lord of Spirits forever and ever? And you are merciful and long-suffering, so you are very tolerant of people's annoying nonsense. Are you Raphael? So you want to help out people with their disease, with their wounds. You're kind of that person that cares for people. You bless not only Yahweh, but everybody else who's worshiping Yahweh. So you're like, Yahweh's great, and so are you guys. Yes, you're like that guy on the team. It's like, everyone's doing good. Oh, did you cut yourself? I got that. Let me fix it. So that's Raphael, okay? Third, we got Jibrail, who's got all the powers. Now, I don't know if we're talking about powers as a class of angels, or if we're talking about powers like abilities. But I think it might be classes of angels, because he doesn't go into it further than that. And then you're the one that's praying and interceding. Okay, so this also kind of goes with the powers too, right? So you're helping people out and you're communicating with other angels. You're kind of that like manager guy, okay, middleman. If you're the one who tag yourself, if you are Phanuel, okay, you're the one that's like fighting people off, separating them away from like your main man, which is the Lord. Okay, and you're also allowing people to repent and get hope. So you're kind of fighting those off and like protecting people. So almost like providing safe passage for people to get to God. So which one are you? Tag yourself, Michael, Raphael, Jibrail, or Phanuel. Go for it. I guess I would be Raphael. Be like, yeah, everyone's doing a great job. Oh, did you hurt yourself? Let me help you out. I'm Raphael. Michael is the tank. Raphael is the healer. Phanuel picks up and deals with the ads. That's true. Let's see here. Yeah, so the one person was saying about the archons, about the powers. And so that's kind of the thought that I was thinking. I was thinking like principalities and powers, which are kind of referenced, and then in Catholicism it kind of goes into them being almost a class of angels. I always got the idea of like the titans versus the gods versus the demigods in that Greek mythology. That's kind of how I had thought of it. Jibrail, are all forms of, in Arabic, same way as Mikhail, and Mikhail. Okay. Gabriel is the DPS. That's good. So we can roll stats for them. If you guys, did you guys want that D&D room opened up in the Discord? And then you guys can run a game based on this, and your characters are based on this. That'd be a lot of fun, I think. All right. So after I saw the secrets of the heavens, how the kingdoms divided, how the actions of men are weighed in the balance. Okay, and that really reminds me again of that like Book of the Dead, ancient Egyptian thing. I saw that there's the mansions of the elect and the mansions of the holy, and I saw that there are sinners being driven away and deny the name of the Lord of Spirits, being dragged off, and they can't abide there because of the punishment which proceeds from the Lord of Spirits. So it's like he's got a shield on, I guess, against all these folk. They can't come in. So he sees the secrets of lightning and thunder. This is the astronomical secrets. So get out your pens, or I guess your fingers to type here, at how many of these we have an answer to. All right. So the secrets of lightning and thunder, secrets of the winds, how they are divided to blow over the earth, the secrets of the clouds and the dew. I saw there from whence they proceed, in that place from whence they saturate the dusty earth. All right. I teach geography. We know all those answers. I'm sorry. And I saw there were closed chambers out of which the winds are divided. Now, we did hear about this from before. He was talking about the different winds when he went to like the north, the east, and the south, and the west. So this is him talking about it again. They had a chamber of hail and winds, a chamber of mist, and of the clouds. There's clouds that hover over the earth from the beginning of the world. When I was reading this, I was thinking like the chamber of the mist. So if you wanted mist, you would just open it up and just kind of goes down. Chamber of hail just kind of goes down. And that also reflects the concept that was discussed in the early, like the Jewish idea of the earth, like the early Jewish earth model, where flat earth with a dome, and then there's all these waters in the cosmos, and that's what the dome separates us from. And then what happened was, to flood the earth, that dome, that part of the dome was opened, and all these waters from outside rushed in. And then to get rid of the flood waters, there were these chambers or caverns in the earth's, like in the ground earth, not, lowercase e earth. And that had poured out the water back into the cosmos. We don't have that. It's not that setup. I'm sorry for anybody. Spoiler warning, the earth is not that. Okay. You would be Jibrail. That's good. That's a good time. So what we got, all right, so I am Raphael. We got Jibrail. Do we have any other two that you guys want to claim? Calling each other. All right. As you guys are tagging yourself. And I saw the chambers of the sun and the moon, whence they proceeded and whither they come again, and their glorious return, how one is superior to the other, how their stately orbit, they don't leave their orbit, add nothing to their orbit, and take nothing from it, keep faith with each other in accordance to their oath, which they are bound together. Cool. So this was again that idea of the dome, and we talked about it in a previous chapter of the Book of Enoch. So just as a refresher, Enoch had seen as the part of the dome opens, and then the sun comes into it, and then the other part opens, and then the sun goes out. And so I don't know if it goes around this way, it goes around the top, whatever, but that's how the sun and the moon pass over the sky. So one part of the dome will let them in, and then it goes, and then they somehow come back to the original side. So that way we don't see the sun going back and forth, Monday and then Tuesday, Wednesday, so it doesn't do that. So again, sorry, Enoch. And first the sun goes forth and traverses his path according to the commandment of the Lord of Spirits in his mighty name forever and ever. But what about those times when the sun and the moon are out at the same time? That's what I don't understand. They knew that, right? There. Okay. And after that, I saw the hidden and visible path of the moon as she accomplishes the course of her path in that place by day and by night. So, okay, we're seeing the moon during the day. And one holding position opposite to the other. Oh, never mind. And they give thanks and praise and rest not. For unto them is their thanksgiving rest. The sun changes oft for a blessing or a curse. And the course of the moon, or the course of the path of the moon, is light to the righteousness and darkness to the sinners, in the name of the Lord, who made a separation between the light and darkness, divided spirits of men, strengthened in the name of his righteousness. So that's odd, right? The sun changes often for a blessing or a curse. And what does that mean? What would that actually mean? What we're reading stuff like, oh, I understood how the winds are divided and where they are. Okay, that's Enoch taking a lot of guesses, trying to explain a natural phenomenon, right? What phenomenon is he expressing here? That the sun is often changing. Changing in which way? In its course? Are we talking about how in the wintertime the sun is not in the sky as long? Is that what we're talking about? We're talking about its perception, that there's clouds in front of it sometimes. What are we talking about here? Can't be talking about eclipses because it says often. And I would not say an eclipse is an often occurring thing. Let's see. So no angel hinders and no power is able to hinder. He appoints a judge for all of them. He judges them all before him. He appoints a judge for all and he judges them all. He appoints a judgment, maybe, for them all. Because that doesn't make sense. That he says, yeah, you're going to judge him. No, I'm going to judge him. All right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. How can he appoint a judge to somebody and then he judges them instead of the judge judging them? So maybe it means he appoints a judgment, perhaps. So that would be very pointlessly bureaucratic. Where are we at? Okay, 42. Wisdom found no place where she might dwell. Where are we stopping, by the way? 44, okay. And then a dwelling place was assigned her in the heavens. Wisdom went forth to make her dwelling among the children of men and found no dwelling place. Ooh, ouch. Let's try again. Wisdom as a concept is looking for a place to hang out, and wisdom went forth to make her dwelling among the children of men and found no dwelling place. Ouch. Ouch. That's like an alien ship scanning Earth for intelligence and saying, no intelligent life found, adios. Like, oof. That's a sick burn, I gotta say. You could use that. I think you should use that. I think it should be a part of any diss track. I think. Like, how could you use that on an individual? Like, the spirit of wisdom has come to, I don't know. I can't think of anything right off the bat. The spirit of wisdom has come to make a dwelling among you, but could not find a suitable host, or I don't know. Went to your house to find a place to stay, but found no suitable host or something like that. Wisdom returned to her place, took her seat among the angels, and unrighteousness went forth from her chambers, whom she sought and not she found, and dwelt with them as rain in a desert and dew on a thirsty land. So it's kind of funky, right? It sounds like unrighteousness and wisdom, or wisdom is mad and so has unleashed unrighteousness. But if we look at this title here, this little subtitle, we're looking at the dwelling places of wisdom and also of unrighteousness. So we're looking at verses 1 to 2 talking about wisdom, verse 3 talking about unrighteousness. But I feel like unrighteousness should be capitalized. I feel. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. I'm always amazed by the extent to which the Bible reveals the limited geographical knowledge of the authors. The different winds show knowledge of travel and also how far they've traveled. Right. That... what am I thinking? Like the trade winds, right? So that is, something to think about. But there's also those parts of the Pacific called the doldrums, which that's where the winds don't dwell. So, hopefully nobody ever made it that far. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. So Signostic, you mentioned Sophia. Are you talking the female aspect of God? Like the Gnostic concept of that? You just reminded me of Robert Tilton. Sorry. Is that good? Is that bad? It's really an insight into the mindset of the era, the spread of information. People valued stories of the people and the info of the people who traveled. Yes, the trade winds, exactly. Right. People that lived at this time, definitely would have been aware of the monsoon, for example, the monsoon wind system. And I mean, it's very seasonal, So this idea that these winds are so reliable, they must have been put there. It's that fine-tuning argument, really, isn't it? Just that fine-tuning argument. Let's go ahead and go to chapter 43. More astronomical secrets for y'all. Saw the other lightnings. And what other type of lightning is there? I mean, yeah, there's ball lightning. There's that funky lightning that's like in the really high, one of the higher levels of our atmosphere. What am I thinking? There's like stratospheric lightning? Yeah, is that what it is? It looks like an octopus or something. Let me see. Ultra atmospheric lightning. Yeah, okay. This is it. It's super cool. So it looks like an octopus, I think, or like a jellyfish. It's pretty cool. But you can really only see these if you're in this level, right? If you're in the stratosphere, which Enoch was not. So I don't know what he's talking about with lightnings, plural, just different times that lightning strikes, like more than one branch of lightning. Is that what he's talking about? Or is he talking about a different type of concept? So we'll see, right? He tends to read repeatedly when he finds something he likes. I'm sorry. Does that bother anybody? I do that just like as a thing. Like if I like it, I read it again. Obviously, you can tell that I do that. I don't know if it bothers anybody. Let's see. So, stars of heaven, lightning, all of that follows Yahweh. So Yahweh will yell at them, basically, which gave me this idea of, I don't know, like one of those dads that doesn't want to go outside to get you, so he yells at you from the porch, and then you all like hearken unto him. I don't know, that's just this idea that I thought of. Like he's not I don't know, that's just kind of how I'm seeing it. Like Yahweh's like a Mexican father, just kind of hanging out, right? And he's like, where there's those kids? Hey. And he just starts yelling out for them, and then you have to come because you hear your dad. Because that's just such a funky concept, right? He calls out to them, like the star. Can you imagine that? You're just like singing in your little ultra focused, oh glory be, oh praise him, yes, blessings be upon the Lord of Lords. So all these people are just, innumerable people are focused on praising him, and he's not even paying attention to them. He's like, hey, Sirius, get over here, Sirius. It's summertime in this part of the world again. You better show yourself. You better do it. Okay. You better. Okay. Like, can you imagine that? You're worshiping this guy forever, and he's not even paying attention to who you are. That's too much. That's too much. The Sophia is a female Eon, which represents wisdom and birth demiurge, the Old Testament god. Okay, I got you. There's it must come from the Gnostics, but there's a sect here called Mother God, and it's this belief that Yahweh has a female counterpart. I don't know if they called her Sophia or Sybil. I'm not sure. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of. So he sees how they are weighed in righteous balance according to their proportions of light. What does that mean? I couldn't figure this out. Weighed in a righteous balance according to their proportions of light. The width of their spaces and the day of their appearing, and how their revolution produces lightning. The revolution according to the number of the angels, and how they keep faith with each other. And I asked an angel who showed me what was hidden. What are these? What are those? And he said to me, the Lord of Spirits hath showed thee their parabolic meaning, their parable, that these are the names of the holy that dwell on the earth and believe in the name of the Lord forever and ever. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that parable with us. But this whole, again, what, obviously it's factually wrong, but what is he trying to explain as a natural phenomenon? That stars and lightning are weighed in righteousness according to their proportions of light, and how their revolution, or it seems the stars are weighed, and the revolution of the stars is what produces lightning during the night or the day. That's a weird one, isn't it? To say that the movement of the stars is how lightning gets charged up, or what? And then when we look at the meaning of the parables, it's the names of the holy who dwell on the earth and believe in the name of the Lord and spirits forever and ever. I mean, do they charge each other? This was a kind of a funky chapter. It's pretty short, but I had a really hard time with this, so I'm hoping somebody else has some more insight. My problem with him is I find him so hard to understand because his first person's perspective doesn't give an argument of asymmetry like ever. Yeah, and it's I guess it's his idea is that everything is done perfectly, even if it appears imperfect, that everything has a course, that it's all decided, and if anything seems to go off its course, off its appointment, it's because Yahweh said so. Except we had those stars that were being punished because they went off their course. It's very funky. And this is the last part. Another phenomenon I saw in regard to the lightning is how some stars arise and become lightnings and cannot part with their new form. Again, what? So if we're looking as a parable, does that mean that the righteous arose and became angels? But that's not what they're saying. That can't be what they're saying. Because the angels are not humans. We know that, right? This idea that some people have where, when a child dies, it becomes an angel in heaven, or a person who died is now an angel in heaven. That just ain't it. That's like saying, that when I die, I become a cat or something. That's not where cats come from. They're not dead humans. And it's the same thing with angels. They're not dead humans. Not even according to Enoch. So they're completely separate. That's why the Watchers were punished. They're different species. Somehow they can interbreed with each other, but it's sort of by the fact that they can take on human form, but then their babies are really messed up. So is it really human form? Ignoring that part, they are a different species. So this wouldn't be that parable that they had just mentioned of the righteous people as the stars arising and becoming lightning. I also think it's really interesting that was this Enoch's idea or was this a common idea at the time? I'm not sure. This idea that stars are less than lightning in some way. Maybe because they're not as bright. They're not destructive. Is that what it could be? So lightning is like an active, destructive force. Are we talking about stars becoming missiles? Which would be the angels becoming demons? So that's where we're leaving off, is with that. Maybe they think the stars fall from the sky and the lightning is just them falling. It could be. It could be. But then what would a meteor be? Because they were aware of meteors. I mean, ancient Egypt was aware of meteors. And I'm sure earlier people before then, they were aware of meteors. So what would that have been? Kind of makes sense if you think about the stars in the firmament. They move, they make cracks like tectonic plates, releasing tension. But then the star is not the same as the sun. That's a different belief here, right? So Enoch and people of Enoch's time would not consider the sun a star. But if the sun can move and the moon can move without making cracks, even though they are types of light, and of course we know that the moon is not a light itself, but it is a reflection of light. But they believe that this is a light, and they're both moving around, then how could these lights that move, you know what I'm saying? How could they create lightning, but the other lights that move don't create lightning? So if you guys have any thoughts, let it marinate. Maybe it'll make more sense as we read on. But that's where we're going to leave off today, which is good. My back's not feeling too great, so I do want to get going. Hopefully you guys had fun with this. I know I did. It was very funky and very fun. But let me try this because I had mentioned it earlier. Never got to try it. This, oh, no. Nope. Okay, it started to arise. Oh, I command it because I hearkened. No. It's behaving without my commands. It's going off of its course. I shall therefore punish thee. This tastes like I hoped it would taste. Like almost like sparkling apple juice. Good. That's my new favorite flavor. Alright. See you guys later. Have fun. Feel free to talk to stuff like that, because that makes you feel pretty powerful. That I had to punish the water because it fizzed without my permission. Have fun. See you later. Have a good day. Bye, guys.